I overheard my uncle tell my cousins, "Don't be like your cousin, a spinster with cats." A week later, I called my lawyer and removed the clause to share Grandma's inheritance. Now he rents an apartment, man. I never thought my Christmas would end with me making the biggest power move of my life, but here we are. Let me tell y'all what went down. So my grandma's place has always been home base for our family gatherings. This past Christmas was no different. The whole crew showed up, decked out in ugly sweaters, ready to chow down on her famous pot roast and exchange gifts. I'm talking aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole 9 yards. My relationship with most of my family is pretty solid, but my Uncle Dave has always been, let's just say he's the type of guy who thinks his Chevy Silverado and country club membership make him God's gift to humanity. Mind you, half of his success came from my grandma floating him loans over the years that magically never got paid back. Meanwhile, I'm over here busting my butt as a veterinary technician, living in my modest apartment with my 3 rescue cats, Felix, Luna, and Pepper. I arrived early to help Grandma set up. Despite being 87, she still insisted on hosting Christmas dinner. Her health had been declining lately, but her spirit was as fierce as ever. She squeezed my hand while we were arranging the dinner table and whispered, "You're the only one who visits me weekly, not just when they need something." I didn't think much of it at the time. The house was buzzing with family by noon, kids running around with new toys, adults sipping on spiked eggnog, and Christmas music playing in the background. I was in the kitchen, helping Grandma with the final touches on dinner when I realized I needed to grab something from my car. On my way back in, I passed by the den where Uncle Dave was sitting with his 2 teenage kids. I was about to say hi when I heard him say, "Look at your cousin in there, don't end up like her, 35, a spinster with cats instead of kids. What a waste." I froze right there, hidden just outside the doorway. My heart dropped to my stomach, faster than a lead weight. His daughter, my cousin Amber, replied, "Dad, that's mean. She seems happy." "Happy? Please. She's just settling because no man wants her. Your aunt and I have real lives. A big house, successful kids, respect in the community. What's she got? Cat hair on her clothes and a 1-bedroom apartment." I stood there, completely stunned. The worst part? I could hear my aunt laughing along. These people were sitting in my grandmother's house, eating food I helped prepare, and mocking my entire existence. I wanted to storm in there and tell them off, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the Christmas spirit, or maybe it was knowing that causing a scene would only upset Grandma on her favorite holiday. So I took a deep breath, plastered on a smile, and walked back to the kitchen like I hadn't heard a thing. Throughout dinner, I caught Uncle Dave giving me these smug looks across the table. Every time he asked me about meeting anyone special, yet I noticed the smirks he exchanged with my aunt, but I just smiled and stayed silent. Let them think what they want. What Uncle Dave didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Grandma and I had always been thick as thieves. When my parents died in that car accident when I was 23, she was my rock. While everyone else in the family was awkwardly patting my shoulder at the funeral, she was the one who held me through the nights I couldn't stop crying. She was also the one who encouraged me to follow my passion for animal care instead of the corporate path Uncle Dave thought everyone should take. "Not everyone needs to chase money to find happiness," she told me. Every Sunday for the past decade, I'd visited her, bringing fresh groceries and spending the day together watching old movies or tending to her garden. What I also knew, that Uncle Dave didn't, was that Grandma owned a beautiful Victorian house in one of the most desirable neighborhoods in town, the house we were all celebrating Christmas in. According to her will, after her passing, I would inherit the house, but was required to sell it and split the proceeds evenly with Uncle Dave. It was a clause Grandma had added years ago, back when Dave was struggling financially after his divorce from his first wife. But that was before he remarried into money, before he started treating me like some cautionary tale for his kids. Updated. Y'all won't believe what went down during that week after Christmas. I was sitting there stewing over Uncle Dave's words, watching my cats chase a laser pointer across my apartment floor, when something just snapped inside me. I kept thinking, am I really gonna let this man walk away with half of what Grandma built after treating me like yesterday's trash? For real though, have you ever had that moment when you realize someone's opinion of you is so dead wrong, but they're still gonna profit off your relationship? What would you have done in my shoes? Let it slide, or make a power move? The week after Christmas, I couldn't shake what I'd heard. Every time I tried to sleep, Uncle Dave's words echoed in my head. Spinster with cats. What a waste. No man wants her. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. So I called my lawyer, Sarah. She'd helped me with some paperwork after my parents died and had become something of a friend over the years. "I need to know something," I said when she picked up. "Grandma's will. Can it be modified? She's still of sound mind." Sarah explained that as long as Grandma was mentally competent, she could change her will anytime. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I told her what happened at Christmas. By the end of my story, Sarah was fired up too. "Let me make some calls," she said. "I'll see if I can meet with your grandmother this week." 2 days later, I picked up Grandma for a lunch date. What she didn't know was that we were heading to Sarah's office. When I explained what we were really doing and why, I was afraid she might be disappointed in me for being petty or vindictive. Instead, she grabbed my hand and said, "Honey, I've known for years what Dave thinks of you. I kept hoping he'd change, that he'd see what I see. A compassionate, intelligent woman who chose a different path than his. But he never did." She shook her head. "The clause to split the house was from a time when Dave was struggling and I worried about him. He's done just fine for himself since then. At Sarah's office, we reviewed the will. Grandma was crystal clear about what she wanted to change. The house would come to me, free and clear. No requirement to sell, no splitting with Uncle Dave. Are you sure, Grandma? I asked. It's a lot of money. She squeezed my hand. I'm sure. You're the one who visits me every week. You're the one who helps me with my medications and takes me to doctor appointments. Dave only calls when he wants to show off something new he bought or when he needs something. This house should go to someone who loves it as much as I do. Sarah made the changes, and Grandma signed the new will. We filed it properly, and I took Grandma out for a real lunch afterward. She seemed lighter somehow, like she'd finally done something she'd been wanting to do for a long time. I didn't tell anyone about the will change. What would be the point? It would only cause drama, and Grandma didn't need that in what were clearly her final years. So life went on as usual. My weekly visits, Uncle Dave's occasional calls to Grandma that always seemed to end with him mentioning some bill or another. Then, a month after Christmas, I got the call I'd been dreading. Grandma had passed peacefully in her sleep. Despite knowing it was coming, her heart had been weak for years. I was devastated. She wasn't just my grandmother, she was my best friend, my confidant, the person who truly understood me. The funeral was a somber affair. I sat in the front row, clutching a handkerchief that still smelled like her perfume. Uncle Dave gave what I'm sure he thought was a moving eulogy, talking about Grandma's generosity and how much she loved her family. All I could think about was how he'd use that generosity while simultaneously looking down on the values she'd tried to instill in all of us. After the service, everyone gathered at Grandma's house, my house now, though no one knew it yet. I'd brought a casserole like everyone else, playing the part of just another grieving family member. Uncle Dave cornered me by the stairs, champagne flute in hand. We need to talk about the house, he said, lowering his voice. I've already spoken to a real estate agent friend. Market's hot right now. We could list it next week. Split would be 50-50 after expenses, like the will says. I took a sip of my water and looked him straight in the eye. There's been a change of plans, Uncle Dave, he frowned. What are you talking about? Grandma modified her will in January. I inherit the house outright. His face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds flat. That's impossible. She wouldn't do that. We had an agreement. She did do it, and it's done. His voice rose slightly. This is ridiculous. I'm calling my lawyer. There's no way she was in her right mind when she made that change. She was perfectly lucid, I said calmly. The lawyer took extensive notes about her mental state. You're welcome to challenge it, but you'll lose. Uncle Dave's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Why would she cut me out? This doesn't make any sense. I could have kept quiet. I could have taken the high road and just walked away. But something in me, maybe it was grief, maybe it was years of swallowing his subtle digs and condescension, made me speak up. She heard what you said at Christmas, Uncle Dave, about the spinster with cats. This wasn't strictly true. I hadn't told Grandma exactly what he said, just that he'd been talking down about my lifestyle. But the lie felt justified in that moment. He paled visibly. I was just joking around with the kids. Were you? Because it sounded like you were using me as a cautionary tale, telling your kids not to end up like their cousin, alone with cats instead of a family. That's not what I meant, he stammered, but we both knew it was exactly what he meant. It doesn't matter now. The house is mine. All of it. He grabbed my arm as I tried to walk away. You can't do this. That house was meant for the family. I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. Then I asked quietly, Am I not family, Uncle Dave? He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Nothing came out. That's what I thought, I said, and walked away. Updated. So here's where things got super intense. Uncle Dave didn't just roll over, no way. Man showed up at my doorstep 3 days later with his hotshot lawyer buddy from the country club, waving around papers and threatening to contest this travesty. Dude was redder than a solo cup at a frat party. His lawyer kept talking about undue influence like I'd brainwashed Grandma or something. Meanwhile, I'm standing there in my Target pajamas with Felix literally climbing up my leg. The whole time I'm thinking, would this even be happening if I had a husband and 2.5 kids instead of 3 cats? Makes you wonder how much of our worth gets tied to the life boxes we check or don't check, you know? Has anyone ever made you feel less valuable because you didn't fit their definition of success? The aftermath was explosive, to say the least. Word spread through the family like wildfire. Suddenly, relatives I barely talked to were blowing up my phone. Some supportive, others clearly Team Uncle Dave. My cousin Amber actually sent me a text saying, "Good for you. Dad's been due for a reality check for years." True to his word, Uncle Dave filed a legal challenge to the will. His lawyer sent over a stack of paperwork claiming undue influence and questioning Grandma's mental capacity when she made the change. Sarah assured me it was mostly hot air. We had thoroughly documented Grandma's mental state, had her doctor sign off on her competency, and the changes were made with all proper protocols followed. He's hoping you'll settle just to avoid the hassle, Sarah told me over coffee one morning. People often do, but if you stick to your guns, he doesn't have a case. And stick to my guns I did. For 3 grueling months, I dealt with depositions, angry phone calls from my aunt, and the occasional family member ambushing me at the grocery store to talk some sense into me. Through it all, I kept thinking about what Grandma would want. She'd changed her will for a reason. The case never made it to court. After Sarah submitted our mountain of evidence and affidavits from Grandma's doctors, Uncle Dave's lawyer advised him to drop the suit. The night after he withdrew his challenge, he called me, clearly a few drinks in. "You've torn this family apart," he slurred. "All for what? A house? Was it worth it?" This isn't about the house, Uncle Dave, I said quietly. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that my life choices are valid even if they're different from yours. So what? I made one comment about your cats, and now I have to rent an apartment while you live in $1 million home. How is that fair? I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted by it all. You didn't make one comment. You've been belittling me for years. And it wasn't your house to begin with. It was Grandma's, and she decided who she wanted to have it. He hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. That was 6 months ago. I've since moved into Grandma's house, my house now. The first thing I did was convert the sunroom into a massive cat playground for Felix, Luna, and Pepper. They love the space, and I like to think Grandma would get a kick out of seeing them race around the room she once used for her plants. I've been slowly renovating, keeping the character of the house but updating it to fit my style. Every Saturday, I host dinner for the family members who've stood by me, my cousins who don't share their father's narrow views, an aunt who called to apologize for never standing up to Dave's comments, and friends who've become like family over the years. Last I heard, Uncle Dave and my aunt are renting a condo downtown. It's not exactly slumming it. It's in a nice building with a doorman and everything, but it's definitely a step down from the McMansion they were planning to buy with their half of Grandma's house money. Sometimes I feel a twinge of guilt when I think about it all. Was I being petty? Vindictive? But then I remember the years of snide comments, the way he made me feel less than for choosing a different path, for prioritizing fulfillment over status. I remember how he used Grandma when it suited him but couldn't be bothered to visit her regularly or help with her care, and I think about what Grandma said to me the day we changed the will. Sometimes people need to face consequences to learn respect. She was right, as usual. Life has settled into a new normal now. I'm still a spinster with cats by Uncle Dave's definition, but I'm a spinster with cats, a beautiful home, and the knowledge that I was loved and valued by someone who saw past society's narrow definitions of success. Last week, I got some unexpected news. The veterinary clinic where I work is looking to expand, and they've asked me to consider becoming a partner. It would mean more responsibility, but also more influence over how we treat our animal patients. I thought about what Grandma would say, and I knew immediately what my answer would be. She always told me to bet on myself, to take the chances others might be afraid to take. So that's what I'm doing. Building a life that makes me happy, surrounding myself with people and animals who love me for exactly who I am. Updated. It's been a full year since everything went down, and life has taken some wild turns. No cap. I threw a housewarming party last weekend. Nothing fancy, just burgers on the grill and some Bud Lights in the cooler. Who shows up uninvited? But Amber and her brother looking all awkward on my porch. Turns out Uncle Dave and Aunt Karen split up 3 months ago. Apparently losing that inheritance money was the last straw for their shaky marriage. The kids wanted to apologize for everything and said they've barely spoken to their dad since. He started drinking heavily. Now they're asking if they can come around more often because this feels more like family than anything we've had. It got me thinking about legacy, not just money and houses, but the kind of person you choose to be. Grandma chose kindness and authenticity. Uncle Dave chose status and appearances. Looking at how things turned out, which path would you choose? Is living true to yourself worth more than fitting someone else's mold? As I sit on the porch swing that Grandma loved so much, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, I can't help but reflect on everything that's happened. Felix is curled in my lap, purring contentedly, while Luna and Pepper chase each other through the garden. This house doesn't just feel like a possession I won in some family battle. It feels like a torch passed down, a legacy of choosing your own path and standing firm in your choices. Sometimes I swear I can smell Grandma's perfume drifting through the hallways or hear her laughter echoing from the kitchen where she taught me to make her famous apple pie. The clinic partnership has been going well. We've expanded our services to include low-cost spay and neuter programs for the community and even opened a small sanctuary for harder-to-adopt cats. Every time we save an animal that others might have given up on, I think about how value isn't always visible on the surface. Uncle Dave still hasn't spoken to me directly, though I hear through the family grapevine that he's in therapy now. His drinking got bad enough to scare him straight, apparently. Part of me hopes he's genuinely working on himself, not just trying to salvage his reputation in the community. I surprised myself by including him in my prayers at night, not because I'm ready to forgive and forget, but because I genuinely want him to find peace. Holding on to bitterness takes too much energy. Amber and her brother come by regularly now. Last month, Amber asked if she could bring her new rescued pit bull mix to play in the backyard. We sat watching the dog run happy circles on the lawn, and she confessed, "I always thought you were the cool cousin, even when Dad was talking trash. Living your life on your own terms seemed so brave to me. I never expected this house to become a gathering place, but somehow it has. Friends drop by with bottles of wine and stories to share. Neighbors bring over homemade bread and stay for coffee. My cats have become the neighborhood mascots, with local kids asking permission to come play with them after school. Some people might look at my life and still see what Uncle Dave saw. A woman without a husband or children, defining success differently than society often dictates. But when I look around at this home filled with love and laughter, at the sanctuary where abandoned animals get second chances, at the found family I've built around me, I see riches that can't be measured in square footage or bank accounts. Grandma knew that all along. It's why she made the choice she did, not to punish Uncle Dave, but to reward a different kind of wealth, the wealth of compassion, of authenticity, of loving deeply and without conditions. As the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, I think about the generations of women who came before me in this house. My grandmother, her mother before her, women who lived through wars and depressions, through social changes and personal losses. Women who understood that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up, who listens, who sees you for who you really are. I may not have children to pass this house to someday, but I've already decided that when my time comes, it will become a full-fledged animal sanctuary with a trust established to maintain it. A place where creatures whose society might deem less valuable can find their worth, their purpose, their home. In the end, isn't that what we're all looking for? A place to belong. People who value us. The freedom to be exactly who we are without apology. Uncle Dave's insult was meant to diminish me. Instead, it led to this moment, this peaceful evening, this full heart, this certainty that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, living exactly the life I'm meant to live. Sometimes words do cost a fortune, but sometimes they lead you to one.